Welcome back to Oregon to the Arctic. For episode 4, we are taking on the 414-mile Dalton Highway. And 414 miles is a little misleading. That number starts in Livingood, and there is basically nothing in Livingood. So really, you're starting in Fairbanks, 80 miles away. So it's best to think of driving this road kind of like climbing a mountain. Deadhorse is the summit. You're only halfway done, and you still have to get back down, in this case, to Fairbanks. So a 414-mile highway soon becomes a 1,000-mile round trip back to civilization. There was a fairly long stretch of road work going on this summer around Hess Creek, and we followed a pilot truck in a line of rigs around that area. There was a pause at a blasting zone where Nick took the opportunity for some personal hygiene. After all of the construction, we pulled over for a quick bathroom break, to clean the windshield, and to just let all of that built-up traffic naturally spread out. Here, we found ourselves behind a truck towing a boat that was dragging his left taillight and a chunk of metal down the road. Between his questionable driving choices and being completely oblivious to my attempts to get his attention, he was not my favorite person. Eventually, small pieces began to come off, and then the whole large piece came off, and he just left it behind on the road. So we stopped and moved it off, the sweet karma being that it was also his trailer's license plate. As we crossed the mighty Yukon River, we caught up again, though he turned off towards the Yukon River camp, and we took the opportunity to drive under the pipeline and to see the BLM ranger station there along the river. Despite it seeming very early in the day, just down the road from the Yukon River is 5 Mile Camp, which was our destination for the evening. This is mostly a large rectangle of dirt with some picnic tables and fire rings. We got set up on the far side and later realized that there are a couple of places where you can tuck back into the brush a little bit, but at that point it really wasn't worth moving. Setup was quick and easy, and we were right next to a little pond. Alright, first camp on the Dalton. 5 Mile campground just after the Yukon River crossing. So we've got toilets and garbage and potable water, so that's pretty cool. It's not the most scenic of areas, but it will certainly do for a camp here. Before long, we got our first visitor in camp, so let's call him Yogi. We had bear spray close by, but my first instinct was to grab the camera. We noticed Yogi was getting a little close to the gentleman camped in the Tacoma, and he didn't seem to be out where he could see him approach. We started to get up and warn him and yell at the bear, but he got out of his truck, and Yogi was easily shooed away with a couple of yells, and he slowly lumbered on down the hill. We ended up having a great talk with our neighbor, and then it was time for dinner. Along with the elk bacon, we had also picked up some bison dogs while we were in Eagle River, and we cooked them up with some pork and beans. With plenty of daylight still to kill, we ventured behind the main camp area to what used to be the Hot Spot Cafe. It's said that they have the best burger in Alaska, and you can still get one. You just have to go to Fairbanks. What's left behind here on the Dalton is a cool set of modern ruins and a couple of old square body Chevys that are near and dear to my heart. As the evening went on, well, look who showed up, minus a taillight and a license plate. We took time in the morning to make coffee and breakfast. This was some more of the elk bacon and potatoes. On the way out of camp, we also took advantage of the artesian well here at 5 Mile, washing up a little bit and filling up our water jugs for the road. Just down the road was our first stop of the day at Finger Mountain. And while the actual pointy rock finger is what this area is known for, taking time to walk the interpretive trail is also well worth it. And it had a fun little stack of rocks at the end that Nicole just couldn't resist scrambling up.
110 million years ago, I was formed.
Wow.
Oozing lava.
But the even cooler stuff lies just a ways off trail. Once again on the road, our next waypoint is the Arctic Circle. We managed to hit this turnoff right at the same time as a few other people, and we all had to take our turns at the sign, so this is what you get. Crossing the Arctic Circle sounds like something off of a kid's wish list, and it is pretty darn cool. Even better is that now you're getting closer to Coldfoot and the foothills of the beautiful Brooks Range. Coldfoot was our required fuel stop before moving on, and from here the scenery really picks up, and one of the highlights is definitely Succotack Mountain. Finally, we approach Atigun Pass. You get a brief climb here before dropping back down, and then only to start climbing again. As the highest road pass in Alaska at 4,738 feet, this one is the stuff of legends. Despite less drama for the camera, I was plenty happy that the conditions were good going up, because even with the small bits of moisture left in places, you could still feel how soft and slippery it could be when the weather is bad. With the slow and rough going, I even manually shifted down to first gear at one point on the steep incline, and by the time we had reached the top, it was the only time I have ever seen the Yukon's temperature gauges climb. Both engine and transmission were up to about 225 degrees. This is the top. Our victory was short-lived as the weather quickly turned on the descent, and we made our way on towards Galbraith Lake. While the skies continued to look sinister, the rain ended well before getting to camp. As you can see, Galbraith Lake itself is really not that close to the actual campsites, as you turn off the highway and drive past the airport and maintenance buildings. we go. It's got some extra space around it. I like it. But you are afforded stunning views of the nearby mountains, with a large glacier making a dramatic backstop to camp. You can see that glacier.
Oh, wow.
So that driving. Alright guys, so we are at the Galbraith Lake campground for the night. The lake is way off over in that direction. You're not really close to the lake at all. But what you are close to are some beautiful mountain views directly up behind you, including a glacier you can see up there. So that's by far the more interesting part than the lake, I think. But we got here, it's almost 4. Gonna make some dinner, get things ready. We've got thunder going on in the background there. Don't know if it's gonna actually rain or not yet, so there it is. We'll see. But reposition the picnic table under the awning, so we'll be ready no matter what. Alright guys, so it is just a hair before midnight here at Galbraith Lake, and this is the sun situation behind me. Still up pretty high in the sky, and we're still about 140 miles south of Prudhoe Bay, so pretty cool to see a true midnight sun. But yeah, so, and this is going to be the farthest night north that we spend, so we'll be farther down the road again tomorrow night. So this is pretty much it. I'm getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, so I think I'm gonna head back into bed, but just wanted to have a chance to show you guys that. It's pretty cool to be up here. As we pull away from the foothills of the Brooks Range, it begins to feel like we are truly on the north slope. We again had a long stretch behind a pilot truck through even more construction. Well guys, after being stuck between trucks doing 65 miles an hour down a very rough dirt road, which is actually kind of stressful, found a little turn off where we got away from things. Took us down to the river there. Looks like a beautiful spot, so we're gonna take a little break for a moment here before we continue on. All we've seen for wildlife so far is ducks and geese. Hopes are still there, but dwindling.
You and I would always find somewhere to hide when we were kids, so we could see and hear the water run. The river's gonna cry when you're gone.
After that brief pause, we were soon back on the road heading north, with what seemed like a never-ending line of big rigs heading in our direction. One especially fun feature is called the Ice Cut. This is a really narrow section with a blind corner at the top, and it's definitely best to go this one at a time. The road eventually turns from gravel into really crappy pavement, and then the last 50 miles is what is known as the best pavement in all of Alaska. And I would say that that is probably very true. On our way into Deadhorse, we did finally see a couple of moose and caribou, but without a muskox in sight, we were a little disappointed. But we also realized that we had been pretty spoiled with wildlife so far on our trip. We had arrived in Deadhorse well before our tour was scheduled to begin, so we made a lap through town, taking the opportunity to fuel up while we had the time. We also made the obligatory stop at the Brooks Range Supply. This is obviously another landmark sticker opportunity, while also being a general store, a Napa Auto Parts, and the post office.
Sweet.
Luckily, we didn't need any parts for the truck, so we grabbed a couple of stickers and sweatshirts to commemorate the milestone. That's cool. Nice. After our tour of Deadhorse, we backtracked just out of town to a spot on the Saginaw River where we made a quick lunch and got to see a little more wildlife. Soon, it was time for us to load up on the tour bus that would take us through the oil field security checkpoints and finally on to the waters of the Arctic Ocean in Prudhoe Bay. It's not necessarily a scenic drive, but the driver kept it interesting, and after about 8 miles, you are at the beach.
Hi, Andy.
Hi.
We're here. It's gonna be cold. You gonna get in?
Sure. At least the bottom.
This is as deep as it gets. So to do the plunge, you just have to go for it.
Alright.
Here we go. You don't have to. Yay! Yeah, there we go. There we go. And did it!
The bay is quite shallow here, and the water seemed very Oregon-like for temperature. On our way back through town, we would see more caribou in town than we would see at any other time on the entire trip. When we got back to the building, we even got our official Arctic Polar Bear membership certificates, and even the people that didn't go in the water got them. So anyway, after our Arctic Ocean experience, I had set an ambitious goal for the evening, and the plan was to make it back to the Marion Creek campground that is just north of Coldfoot, but we would be stopping to make dinner somewhere along the way. But before dinner, here is an example of that bad Dalton pavement. This is the kind of thing where you are most likely to cause a flat. Gravel is much preferred over this. We stopped at a little unmarked rest area that even had a bathroom for us, and we found that we had a neighbor that was very unconcerned with our presence. He made a bed in the bushes behind where we were parked and didn't move a muscle after that. We made dinner with one of the worst bunches of mosquitoes on the entire trip. Yeah, do you believe that myth that they don't bug you when there's wind? Because I don't anymore. We're retreating to the car to eat. Those mosquitoes are nasty, and they don't care about the wind or anything else.
Oh, dickhead.
Jesus. We steadily made our way back south, passing endless big rigs, a couple of rain showers, and found ourselves once again at Atigun Pass. Heading south, the incline seems much easier than when heading north, and it was an easy climb before heading back down. We cruised on for quite a while, but ended up stopping short of Marion Creek. We found a great little spot on the river and decided to call it a night. Well, it is 12:30, and I think we found a pretty good camp for the night while avoiding a campground, so hard to beat views like this. But we're gonna go to sleep, because we've been driving a long time. As we packed up and left the river that morning, little did we know that this would be our last camp in Alaska. I had planned one more at Deadman Lake, about 65 miles west of Fairbanks, as it made a great stop just before the Canadian border. But when we got there, it was completely full. So after making a lap through the camp, we continued on down the Alcan, and there just really weren't any great options. So the next thing we know, we are at the Canadian border.
Hey, you're good to go.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. In the Yukon Territory, pullouts and rest areas with bear-proof garbages are plentiful, so we just planned to stop once we found a nice spot. This had appeared to be one of those nice spots, cutting back alongside the main road towards the river, but it got a little creepy and dead-ended in the bush with a really claustrophobic feel back in the dark. So we continued on longer than planned and ended up at a fairly busy rest stop. We got going quickly in the morning and made a breakfast stop at a beautiful pullout. And there I took the time to put on the spare tire on the right front, as the camber wear was getting quite bad on the inner edge of that tire. Even though we were on the way back, we still had a lot of new scenery, since on the way north, we had diverted on the Klondike Highway to hit Dawson City, and now we were taking the Cassiar Highway south through BC before linking back up with our previous route in Prince George. And it had been a weird, bittersweet feeling when we hit the Canadian border on the same day that we had left the Dalton. It felt in many ways that the adventure was over, but we were still over 2,000 miles from home. There were no more real destinations or activities, and we just had to put in the miles to get back home and get ready to face the real world again. The distance all of a sudden felt a little daunting. But we made the effort to just enjoy the moments and the new to us scenery. It's hard to get too down in such beautiful country. It's safe to say that we have left a large piece of our hearts in Alaska and the Yukon. That's no knock on our own Oregon, but there is something special in these places of the far north. Everything is just more. The mountains are taller, the glaciers are larger, and the open, wild places are almost unbelievably vast and legitimately wild. It's easy to feel like you may not always be at the top of the food chain anymore. And I think that's a good thing, to get some perspective on our place here in the world, to be reminded of what's important, what things make us truly happy, and what we can simply do without. So now that we have had the chance to see the big, broad overview experience of Alaska and absolutely fall in love, we will be back to this amazing place. And the plan is to explore it in a slower, more intimate fashion next time. There are lifetimes of adventure there, and so we'll just have to do the best that we can. But rest assured, when we go, we will take you along for the ride. Just don't forget to make time to get out for yourselves and experience this amazing world. If we can, so can you.